Chapter 3 First Fight. The minute the bus pulled up to the Spring Stadium, Springman rushed to the back of the building. Waiting for him was his trainer, William. His hands in both of his pockets as he looked smugly at his protege.
"Made it just on time, kid,"
he commented to the springy-haired fighter. "You betcha," Springman replied.
"I don't know how I forgot to give you these, but you're gonna need them if you want to get far in the Grand Prix."
William pulled out a pair of red wristbands that had his logo on them.
They're called switch wrists. You'll need them to swap between your arms in between rounds.
Springman quickly slipped them onto his wrists. Attached to them were a set of 3 arms given the names Toaster, Boomerang, and Tribal. He knew things would be a lot more advanced in actual tournament fights, but this was a lot to take in, especially since each of them had an element associated with them. He did like the puns attached to them, though.
Still a bit nervous, kid?
Springman was brought out of his thinking as he heard William speak to him. "What? No. He laughed weakly, trying and failing to hide his fear. "Okay, I might be." William chuckles to his protege as they walked through the back entrance.
"Reminds me of when I first got the title."
He placed his hand on his shoulder in an encouraging manner.
"You got this, Austin. Or I guess I should start referring to you as Springman now. Just show him the spirit you showed me all those years ago."
A man in a black suit appeared in front of them, ecstatic to see he had finally arrived. "Number 3! He exclaimed. "The match is about to begin! You gotta get out there quick!" Springman nodded his head, a look of determination on his face. He immediately equipped his toasters onto both of his arms. They looked like normal red boxing gloves, but he could tell they packed quite the heated punch. Running forward, he jumped as he extended his right arm to punch the ground, making him jump higher into the air. The audience watched in amazement when they saw the blue-haired fighter springing into the arena. He bounced directly onto one of the trampolines on the edges of the stage before bouncing into one across from him. Finally, he lands onto the floor, pumping his fist in the air. "Boing!" he exclaimed his catchphrase, much to the joy of everyone who came to see the fight. Springman could see Andre and Tracy somewhere in the audience cheering him on, giving him all the encouragement he needed. Off in the audience, a strange, short, yellow creature sat in a chair high in the air. He had a red diamond-shaped mask on his face and a strange yellow fist perched upon his head. "Hello, Armsopolis, and hello, Arms fans," he announces into his microphone, waving to a camera hovering in front of him. "My name is Biff, and you are tuning into the start of the Grand Prix of the Generation. Taking on this important journey head-on is the man that every man wants to be, the bouncer, Springman!" Springman waved to the audience, basking in the roars and cheers of the audience. In the corner of his eye, he could see someone jumping into the ring. She wore a pink cheerleader uniform and appeared to have bright yellow ribbons for hair. Her arms were made of a similar material but were pink, and a pair of neon yellow robotic boxing gloves donned her wrists, spinning in a perfect circle as she jumped multiple times in the air until she landed in the ring, striking a pose by offering one of her arms to the audience. "Hey!" she sung as a means of introducing herself.
"And facing off against him is the heiress, Ribbon Girl!"
Biff announced from his chair enthusiastically. One of the most popular music artists from all of Armsopolis, Ribbon Girl has entered the Grand Prix to help promote her upcoming tour. Who will be carrying what could be the event of the century? Well, only one way to find out. Fighters, get ready to arm up! In one corner of the stage, Springman had equipped a toaster on his right arm and a boomerang on his left. The boomerang looked like its namesake and was yellow with red decals. Ribbon Girl, on the other hand, had chosen one of the same yellow boxing gloves from before, as well as a strange red hand-shaped arm that looked like it was meant to slap people.
"Ready?" Biff called out to the stadium.
"Arms!" And just like that, the fight began without a second to waste. Ribbon Girl threw a punch with her yellow glove, with Springman narrowly avoiding it by jumping out of the way. He quickly threw his boomerang at her in response. When it hit her, it caused her to fly away from what appeared to be a tornado that came from it. She got up from the ground with a spin and a twirl, launching her hand-shaped arm at him, lighting him up with a spark of fire. It took Springman completely off guard, causing him to get knocked down onto the ground. He got back up from the ground, jumping directly into one of the trampolines behind him, launching him directly into the air as he grabbed her, flying at her to attack. She was punched once and then another time, sending her flying into the ground. She got backed up and jumped into the air and surprised the audience by jumping a second time while airborne. Musical notes surrounded the air she jumped on as she spun and threw her yellow glove arm at the stunned bouncer, electrocuting him and making him unable to dodge from her grab. She picked him up with her arms and tossed him to the far end of the stage. He didn't think she was going to be weak by any means, but he didn't expect her to be this good. Springman quickly got back up as the heiress attempted to hit him with her red arm at him. This time he managed to deflect the oncoming attack with what looked like a mini shockwave. It didn't do any damage, but it did enough to keep him from being hit. He then sent one of his toasters flying at her while attacking from the side with a boomerang. Ribbon Girl was instantly caught in the crossfire and fell to the ground, losing the round with a KO. Before the beginning of round 2, Springman equipped 2 toasters on both of his arms, while Ribbon Girl used the same neon yellow arms as before on both of hers. When the fight began, they threw a punch at each other, but their arms fell to the ground the minute they collided with one another. Springman took this opportunity and threw another punch. It was about to knock the heiress to the ground when he grabbed her and punched her into one of the trampolines. He was going to throw another punch when she somehow managed to jump out of the way before grabbing him and sending him flying into the ground. When he got back, he jumped out of the way of an incoming punch with a pure electricity. He jumped back into one of the trampolines and attempted to throw a punch at her, but she jumped out of the way last second and jumped a second time as he was about to throw another one. He landed on the ground and had to dash out of the way of an oncoming punch. This was a trick, however, as he was then caught off guard by another electric punch. It caused his arms to go limp and fall to the ground. The bouncer could only watch as the pop star spun in place before activating her rush. It was a flurry of glowing neon yellow punches being thrown at him. With one final punch, Springman fell to the ground with a cry of anguish as he was KO'd. It was down to the wire in round 3. If he wanted to continue this Grand Prix, he couldn't stop now. On one of his arms was the boomerang, and on the other was a green missile launcher-esque weapon called the Tri-Bolt. Ribbon Girl had equipped one of those strange red hand arms in what looked like a confetti popper. Right as Biff announced the beginning of the round, Springman had managed to block a heated-up slap from one of her arms. He jumped out of the way and shot her with the Tri-Bolt. She was stunned into place, giving him the opportunity to send her flying into the ground with his boomerang. The second she got up, she was out for blood. Ribbon Girl jumped into the air with a spin before jumping a second time as the bouncer tried to attack her with the Tri-Bolt. Jumping a third time, she suddenly illuminated with a bright yellow light before unleashing a flurry of fire and confetti at him. Springman had no time to react as he was sent flying across the stadium. He landed on the ground in front of the seats where Andre and Tracy were sitting. The two were watching in amazement and worry for the springy-haired fighter.
"Don't give up, Springman!"
Tracy shouted while pumping her fist in the air.
"You can do this!"
In that moment, Springman felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. He got up from the ground by jumping and launching himself into the air with one of his arms. He was surrounded by a red aura that almost made it look like he was glowing. This wasn't caused by any sort of anger or frustration, but from a jolt of pure determination. The audience roaring with surprise and eagerness, watching as the bouncer managed to deflect a fire-up slap with a minor wave of electricity from his arms. He jumped back into one of the trampolines, breeze drifting through his hair as his aura changed to a vibrant shade of orange. A flurry of wind and tiny fake bullets raining down on Ribbon Girl as her opponent unleashed his rush attack. She fell to the ground when he landed back onto the ground, causing Biff to shout one last KO among the cheers of the audience. Springman looked on in astonishment, a mild amount of shock racing through his mind at what he had done. A part of him was also worried about his opponent, but it quickly evaporated when she started to get up, looking at him with a face of accomplishment. Once everyone had cleared out of the stadium, Austin was about to leave when he heard someone clear their throat behind him. Behind him was Andre and William, with Tracy and Ribbon Girl not far behind them. "Nice job out there, Austin," William called out while pumping his fist into the air. "I knew I had it in you."
"Aw, shucks. It wasn't anything too difficult." Austin shrugged his shoulders, smiling both confidently and awkwardly.
"Nonsense, bucko. You showed some different compentos out there,"
Andre chimed in.
"Yeah, you did awesome out there,"
Tracy chimed in, a bright smile beaming from her face as stars practically shined from her eyes.
"By the way, Austin, I know you're gonna be carrying the Grand Prix and everything, but I'm gonna be out of town for a while,"
William explained while scratching the back of his head.
"Huh? How come?" Austin asked in confusion. "I have some business issues to take care of outside of Armsopolis. Part of the reason why I wanted you to pick up Andre and his daughter was so you'd have someone looking out for you during the Grand Prix."
So, when are you gonna be back?
I'm not entirely sure, but
William holds up a finger to Austin's face right as he starts to look mildly disappointed.
I'll still be watching your matches whenever I'm able to. Anyway, I gotta go home so I can start packing.
Well, I guess it was nice chatting with you. Austin waved as his trainer walked away. Andre appeared to be a bit disappointed to hear that, but he couldn't really tell why. It was only then that Ribbon Girl walked up to him, a small smile on her face.
So, you're the new guy everyone else has been talking about.
She inquired with her hand into her face in a questioning gesture. Yeah, I hope there wasn't anything too bad said about me. Also, sorry for beating you back in that fight.
Austin let out a nervous chuckle over his awkward attempt at an apology.
Don't worry about it, Spring. If I had a problem with getting my butt handed to me, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have joined the league in the first place.
Ribbon placed her hand around the bouncer's shoulder to know that she was chill with him.
And don't worry about the others. They may not show it, but they're all at least a little excited to see you.
Oh, cool. Well, it was nice meeting you, Ribbon Girl.
You can just call me Callie if you want. Just make sure not to call me that in battle. Breaks the character quite a bit when you refer to your opponent by their real name.
The heiress slipped her hands into the pockets of a puffy white coat she had tied around her waist as she turned around.
Anyway, I gotta go or my mom will lose her mind if I'm not back home on time. Hope to see more awesomeness from you in the ring.
Austin waved goodbye at her as she walked away.
With nothing else to do, him, Andre, and Tracy all walked out of the now empty Spring Stadium. The sun had set long ago and the sky was split between orange and purple. They all hopped aboard the bus that had just arrived to drive them back to the apartment complex. Tracy simply doodled in her notebook whatever random thought came to her mind as she listened to something in a pair of headphones she seemingly pulled from nowhere. One rather peculiar doodle being of what appeared to be a bus with arms attached to the sides. It appeared to just be something drawn randomly since it lacked a lot of detail compared to the other doodles on that page. Eventually, the bus came to a stop right outside the apartment complex. Austin said his goodbyes to Andre and Tracy, and they all split into their own paths.
The day had ended rather peacefully for each of them. Little did any of them know, however, this day would spark the calm before the storm of what would go on to become one of the darkest events in ARM's history.